Hi, I'm Starr and I am a choreographer and dance educator based in Richmond, Virginia. So I started taking dance in Richmond, Virginia at a small studio called Martinique School of Dance, and my mother enrolled me there when I was 8 because she danced also at Martinique when she was a little girl. And then I started taking dance at Richmond Ballet, which ironically I work there now. From the time I was 9 to the time I was 14, I studied every summer in New York City at Newburgh Ballet and at Steps. And when I was 15, I moved up to Delaware and also in Philadelphia and continued my training there. So my mother really pushed me to get involved in dance, mainly because I was a tomboy. I think that she thought it would deter me from climbing trees and playing in mud puddles, and so they thought they would make me a little bit more girly. Which it really didn't work, but it did make me fall in love with dance. So in 1991, I moved back to Richmond to go to school and get my degree in dance and choreography. And then I met somebody named Arnott Mader, who was my ballet teacher at VCU Dance. After I graduated in 94, 95, and 96, Mr. Mader had asked me to choreograph his workshop dances. So he knew that I was very interested in doing choreography from knowing me at VCU Dance. And so I created ballets for him because he didn't want to choreograph. And then I decided that I would start making work independently. And then in 2001, I established Starr Dance Project. One of the reasons I established the company here in Richmond is because there wasn't anything here. There wasn't a modern company here. People were doing work, but there wasn't one set company. I also, during that time period, decided that we would host something called the Choreographer Showcase, and it was really created as an outlet for other choreographers. And because I had the company, we were able to host other choreographers. Because one of the problems I found as a choreographer, it was hard to show work unless you had already created work. Of course, with the showcase, we started doing it in galleries, so it was very old school. We had we went to Lowe's and bought the slider lights, and that's how we turned. We had like real light bulbs, not stage lights. Turned everything on and off. It was a shoestring budget. And then around that time period, I started working for VCU, and I came in and filled in for a faculty member who wasn't able to continue her classes, and I've been there ever since. And then in 2004, Richmond Ballet hired me to set a work for their trainees. My mother was a fine artist, and she painted and did a lot of charcoal work growing up. And then one of the ways I made money when I was living in Delaware was I was a portrait artist. I think I initially thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. Now I think about, I was like, oh, I could never be a veterinarian now. I'm way too sensitive. But, looking back at like my childhood and the way my sister and I would play, and I would, I guess, choreograph, things for our parents. So I knew that I wanted to be a dancer, but I didn't, I guess you don't know. If you would have asked me 30 years ago if I would have been a teacher, I would have, I probably would have said, you're crazy. No, I'm not going to teach. It's something that you end up falling in love with. And you also realize as you get older where your gifts lie. So, and also realistically, for a dancer, it's good if you're able to teach, if you have that skill, because being an artist really doesn't financially support you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't get good reviews, or were you ever, you felt like not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. As an artist, you're so vulnerable. And that's, you have to have a little bit of thick skin. And I think that, and even, and that doesn't change. That doesn't ever change. I think it actually, the more successful you are, there's higher expectations, so it kind of gets worse in some respect. So there's often, I think that it's okay that people don't like my work. I think that that's actually, in some respect, a compliment, because they're feeling something, and because if you can provoke any emotion, then that's good, even if it's even if somebody finds it dissatisfying. If people don't like me as a person, I'm okay with that too. That's one of the cool things about growing up is you can pick your friends. It's pretty amazing to survive as an artist, to actually make a living out of something that you love to do, and to be able to share it with so many other people. You have to expect some, I don't want to say negative feedback, but you expect some people not to like your work. I can say that I love dance and I've dedicated my whole life to it, but I don't like all of it, and I think that's okay. It's kind of like the type of foods we eat there, and that's nice in some respects, because I think we all have had people say, "Oh, you're a modern dancer? Does that mean you sizzle like bacon on the floor?" And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I do. Now people really know what modern dance is. But before, when it wasn't so prominent in the dance world, and it wasn't integrated in the school systems. When I was growing up, there was 2 main performing arts schools: Baltimore School for the Arts, and then of course New York for the acclaimed, famed TV show. And that's really it. There's a couple schools out in California on the West Coast, but as far as the East Coast, that was it. So, and of course they were doing Dunham and Graham and Cunningham techniques, but nobody really knew. Now that there's more education and there's more schools, we have, 4 or 5 schools that have dance programs just in our Tri-Cities area. So much to say about advice, really. And I think connected to one of your earlier questions, in regards to how people feel about choreography and your work, and perseverance. It is being in the arts in general, but advice to an aspiring dancer, I think, is there's always going to be somebody better than you. You're always going to be somebody better. You're always going to be better than somebody else. And also, stay humble, because there's, it can get so very competitive, and you don't ever want to get sucked into that monopoly. All the dedication and all of the time spent and all the passion does eventually pay off. And for some it comes a little quicker than others. And so you have to really maintain your path. So you create your path and you maintain your path. And then another, I guess, bit of advice is to really pay attention to your options, because an opportunity may come about, and it might not be the best thing for you, you know. And I especially say when people are looking at universities or programs, you know, do you like the state? Do you like the space? Do you like the people that you're studying with? You know, make sure that you pay attention to all of those things. You're going to find yourself as a dancer working with in works that you may not like, but there's always something to take from it, always. As dancers, we're kind of barbaric people. You know, it's like we're never good enough. But there's always room for growth. And there's always there's always going to be opportunity. And if you ever find yourself at a point where it doesn't feel good anymore, then that should be, you should definitely reevaluate and either change your situation, you know, where you're at, where you're studying, or be, you know, and learn how to step back and look at the big picture, because it's hard to be an artist, and it's because it is such a kinetic, you know, to grow up as a dancer, and especially as a young woman, is so hard, to be constantly critiqued. So you have to make sure that you're finding the joy from it, always.